Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here about Kagurabachi Chapter number 114. This chapter is titled Kunishige Roku here. And hey, I know that name. I've been reading Kagurabachi since chapter 1. I remember there was one time early on where they mentioned this name and we haven't heard it since. And all of the community's been like, when is Kunishige Roku here going to show up? But legitimately, all jokes aside, this is an amazing chapter of Kagurabachi for, of course, multiple reasons. And I know I am a guy who reviews this series on the internet. Of course, I have to like it to be able to talk about it, or, I do cover Marching Crown on this channel, and that is a series that I have some very decisive opinions on, but either way, if I'm covering a series, of course I'm going to say it's a good chapter. But I think this is a really fun chapter. It's one of my favorite things in manga in general. Whenever we sit down and just get a comedy chapter sort of setting us back, seeing how this world is setting up to, of course, build up the bigger arc and more depressing stuff that's going to be coming later. It's just good storytelling, and that's what we get in this chapter of Kagurabachi, along with hey, Kunishige is this weird, funny guy, but along with this, meeting a character who, legitimately, we've heard his name a few times, we know his role later on in the story, but of course we get introduced to Subaru properly in this chapter, or I'm not really going to say we get introduced to him properly, but we at least hear him speak in this chapter, which for some of us is enough to get us through the rest of the week. But yeah, with that, really not too much else to say about the beginning of this chapter, but nothing else, and let's just go and hop into chapter number 114 of Kagurabachi. But of course, before we can do that, we first need to mention what happened last time in Kagurabachi, and last chapter was the beginning of the Seitai War arc. As we pretty much just saw Shiba going through, he beat up some sorcerers or this one sorcerer guy who I called Goggles, who doesn't have a name, and pretty much went through, beat him up, and was like, hey, this stone you got here, this Danseki that comes from the island of Hiroshima, which all of a sudden this Orvade suddenly popped up on the edge of Chiba Prefecture, and also this island nation that we're currently calling Shokoku. And oh, there's this weird material here. Well, I'm going to go and liberate from that. Thank you very much, right? And of course, he was like, well, I know a guy who I want to go take this to. It's my friend Kunishige Rokuhira. And we don't start off this chapter exactly in that position, but we do start it off somewhere sort of in the area, getting to that point by the midpoint of this chapter. As I have to mention the title page of this chapter, as you see, it's now sort of the guy that's been traveling around with Shiba last chapter, this character named Mashiro here, and we see that he's got this sword on his back, and it looks like a very nice craftsmanship of a blade. Yeah, it's Kunishige's. We learn that pretty quickly in this chapter, but also we just see that Mashiro's eating a little lollipop here in the moment, and the blade is almost drawn in the same way that the butterfly swatch was, whenever it's those two white lines just almost bisecting the two parts of the page here. It's honestly a really cool visual, and I don't know, I just really like how this cover page is set up, and I love whenever manga do title pages. It sort of shows that they have enough room where they can make a really cool illustration and then still get across everything they want to talk about in the chapter figured out, which I always just think is really cool. But we start off this chapter with a little bit of narration, sort of explaining that a certain lab sits in the outskirts of Tokyo. And ever since Shokoku's appearance, Japan's leading scientists have been convened here in this lab to work on a top secret government project. Of course, this is researching the Danseki, a novel material that emits tremendous amounts of spirit energy. And we then sort of cut over to wherever Mashiro and Shiba are, as we see that Shiba's got some yakisoba, all of these noodles, and he's just eating it up here in the moment. And Mashiro's of course it's not okay. Just because the research isn't going well, you're just going to show this rock to who again? And Shiba's hey, it's a childhood friend who's a swordsmith. Simple as that. And Mashiro's oh my gosh, Shiba. As Shiba also goes through and starts slurping up all of the noodles, I don't ask me what that sound was. I have never really slurped up noodles like that, so should I cut that? No, we're keeping that in. Oh my, what are we doing, Glowplasma? But either way, as Shiba is slurping up all of these noodles, Mashiro sort of looks over and is and so what kind of civil servant are you? Are you just gonna sit there and slurp the noodles and not respond to me? And he's just oh my gosh, whatever, man. And also, who is this Kunishige Rokuhira? I've never heard of the guy. Who is he? And Shiba's hey, it'll be fine. And the two of them start walking off, and Mashiro's are you really sure about this? Like, actually, where the heck are we? As Shiba sort of turns around and is like, oh, Mashiro, like, I gave you that sword that you carry. Remember that, right? And Mashiro's like, yeah, and it was the whole idea of, like, now that I'm 18, like, I should have something cool, and it's a sword, and Mashiro was so happy about it. And Shiba explains, like, well, it was Rokuhira who forged a blade. And Mashiro goes and draws it off his back and sort of holds it in front of him. And he's like, oh, really? Like, for real? And Shiba's like, well, how does the blade feel? Is it like a good blade? And Mashiro's like, yeah, I mean, it's a good sword. And Shiba's like, right? I mean, that's my entire point. Whenever the two of us were 12, Rokuhira started a brutal apprenticeship as a swordsmith, and every now and then he came and snuck back home, and we sort of just get this small little image of Kunishige walking back this headband. He's ripping it off his head like, I've had it, I quit, I don't want to make swords anymore. And she was like, hey, welcome back, man. And of course, in the present, Mashiro's like, wow, it sounds like it was pretty rough for him. As we then get another little bit of an image as she was like, yeah, well, every time he did screw up, they would throw stuff at him pretty much. And the next time Kunishige came home, his face is like all bloodied and like blood's just running down every little, like in between his eyes. And he's just like, Shiba, save me. And she was like, hey man, you've got something stuck in you. You may want to get that figured out. And Mashiro's like, oh, is that why you're always so calm? Is because like you saw this from a young age? And she was like, hey, whatever. He rarely sells any swords, so nobody's really heard of him. But trust me, Mashiro, he is the real deal. And Mashiro's like, oh, yeah, well, in that case, if he grew up with you, Shiba, he's got to be some kind of freak, isn't he? And she was like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, you're calling me a freak? And she was like, well, you know what? He could have starved to death by now. He is really broke. He does sell no swords. And Mashiro's like, oh, is that the case? As the two of them walk up to Kunishige's mountain hood retreat, pretty much. And Shiba walks up to the two doors and knocks on the door and just like... And the two of them stand there for a minute. Shiba just goes... Again, just trying to knock. And Shiba's like... well, maybe he did starve to death. And Mashiro's like, oh, that would be really too bad. As Shiba slides open the door like, oh, look at this, it's actually open. Of course, this guy never actually locks up his house. Like, let's just go through and check the forge. And as they start walking through the house, this place is a mess. The refrigerator is left open. Inside the refrigerator are like a carton of eggs that's just been left open, greens that are wilting in there as it just blowing all of the cold air into the house. We see, of course, like the stove, these pots, like on the table, this cardboard box, all of these plastic bags, and just a milk carton sitting out on the table pretty much. Just it doesn't look good whatsoever. It is just a complete pigsty and a mess. And Shiba honestly smiles a little bit looking at all of the various things. And he's like, of course, this guy is helpless, just really true to form. But as Shiba has been checking out all of this, Mashiro went ahead and headed over to the forge. And over at the forge, we see that Mashiro suddenly screams like, whoa, oh my gosh, it's like this guy's dead or something. Like, wait, no, he really might be dead. As we just see laying on the floor of the forge is Kunishige. He's just laying there. All of his clothes are scuffed up. And Shiba sort of walks over and he's like, okay, which one is it? As we see Kunishige lift his head off up of the ground, drool is coming down the side of his mouth. He's like, who are you? It's too bright out, man. And of course, Mashiro's like, oh, wait, he's alive. Oh, it's nice to meet you, sir. And Shiba's like, hey, Rokuhira, like, what are you doing? Long time no see, man. And Kunishige's like, oh, I just passed out from hunger. And he sort of like rolls over and sort of like props himself up with an elbow to keep his head up. And he's sort of just like laying on the ground. And Mashiro's like, is this normal? And she was like, hey, how can you just like chill there on the floor? As all of a sudden, we see that Kunishige starts to sniff like, wait, that smells like a yakisoba. Oh, hey, hey, Shiba, can you give me some yakisoba? I'm really hungry. And she was like, dude, like, you are just too starved. I already ate all of my food. And even more drool starts to, like, drip from Kunishige's mouth as he's just like, I just want some food. He starts, like, growling, and Shiba's like, calm down. I'll feed you after you look at this. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the Danseki and holds it in front of Kunishige, who grabs it here in a second. And she was like, hey, can you tell us anything about this rock? And Kunishige stares at it for a second, and Mashiro's like, wait, Shiba, like, what are you doing? Don't just hand him the rock. It's Japan's most critical... And as he goes and tries to say all of this, Kunishige takes the jar, or this little vial, and slams it straight onto the ground. And it just cracks and smashes right open. A little bit of liquid inside, like keeping the rock floating, not touching anything, spills out all over the ground. And Mashiro's like, why did you do that? This guy is nuts. And I love how Kunishige is like, yeah, this rock is pretty tough, man. As he goes through and picks off the little fragment off of the ground, and Mashiro's like, no, I'm not part of this. I'm not part of this. I'm not doing anything, Shiba. Like, this is all your fault. I have not done anything here. I just came with you because I had to. Like, I'm not doing... And Shiba's like, oh, chill out, man. Well, what do you think, Rokuhira? As Kunishige picks up the rock and looks at it aloud with his eyes, like, holds it in his hands, like, what's with this rock? And Mashiro's like, wait, if you hit that thing of spirit energy... And Kunishige's like, no, like I'd ever do that. It'd be all over if I did. Its particles are faintly growing, reacting ever so slightly to the spirit energy inside my body. If I channeled spirit energy into it, it would resonate with those particles and just explode. I'd bet it'd blow away a human being just easily. And Mashiro looks over and he's like, wait, that's like unbelievable. You figured it out instantly? As he sort of just gives us a little bit of narration explaining like, hey, the first time they exposed the rock to spirit energy, there was an explosion. And after that, scientists further experimented with its explosive qualities, and their investigations led them to basically the exact same conclusion. And Shiba looks over like, see what I told you, man? And he's like, hey, this guy has got a real good eye. As Kunishige just asks, like, hey, where did you get your hand on this? And I was like, hey, can I borrow your lighter, Shiba? And Shiba's like, yeah, sure, here you go. And Shiba just explains, like, hey, it was Princess Soga's prophecy. And Kunishige's like, oh yeah, Chiaki, like, yeah, she's got it very rough too. As Kunishige flips open the lighter and of course ignites the flame and starts holding the flame right under the rock. And Mashiro's like, hey, wait, fire, don't actually do that. And Kunishige's like, hey, don't worry, kid. It looks like it takes heat fine as long as you go pretty slow. And Mashiro's just like, oh no, what is all of this? As Kunishige then just like continues to heat up the rock, and Shiba's like, hey, anything else you can tell us about? And Kunishige's like, nah, you gotta give me a little bit more time. And she was like, hey, Rokuhira, how about this? You should come to Tokyo with us. The government's research is at a dead end, and honestly, you can show them how it's done. And Kunishige's like, nah, man, that just sounds like work. I ain't really into that. And she was like, well, it's your chance to make an actual name for yourself. And he's like, nah, what for? Why do I need to care? And she was like, well, you also want to see Chiaki, don't you? And he's like, oh, whatever, I don't need to. And he's like, you know what, Rokuhira, I'll buy you lunch. And Kunishige is like, in that case, yeah, of course I'll go. Of course, like, he's putting food first before anything, and Mashiro does point this out. And even still, Mashiro's like, hey, are we seriously taking this guy to Tokyo with us? And she was like, hey, you saw for yourself, right? His eyes are just unreal. But Mashiro's like, yeah, like, he's impressive, but we don't have the clearance for this. As over in the corner, Kunishige is drawn in such a funny way, as like drool is coming from his mouth, his eyes are just massive and open, veins popping through, and he's like, hey, let's go, I'm hungry. And Mashiro's like, yeah, this guy's also a barbarian. I don't know if I want to go through with this. And she was like, hey, nah, this guy's going to be revolutionary. And Mashiro's like, oh gosh, what is going to happen? As we then cut over to the Danseki research lab that we saw earlier on the first page of this chapter. And walking around in the circular-like building is this guy in a suit standing here, and we see that he's got his flip phone open. He's like, God, that kid ain't picking up. As of course, this is presumably the guy that Shiba talked with on the phone last time, as this guy even just thinks like, hey, whatever Shiba told him, like, hey, I need to make a quick stop and then I'll be back. And this guy's just like, Shiba, don't do anything stupid, please. As he then looks over from where he's standing up against these glass windows and looks over as there's a man walking towards him in a white coat and with this like rope braided around his head. As he sort of walks over to this man and just introduces himself. Hello, I'm Hasumi of the Sorcery Bureau. And this guy is just like, oh, this place is surprisingly empty. And Hatsumi explains like, hey, we only have a limited personnel here, just the scientists and the government officials involved with the research. The faculty's kind of protected by a force field, so there are also few sorcerers on security. And the guy walks up and is like, so you're telling me that these academics want a swordsmith's opinion? They must be seriously desperate. And Hatsumi just explains like, hey, no, sir, you are no ordinary swordsmith. Your input would be a great boon. As we just get a little bit of narration of something that we've heard before in Kagurabachi, but Japan is a sword-centered society. The number of swordsmiths is well over 2,000, counting the no-names. Of these, the state recognizes the artisans representing the nation's highest level of excellence as living treasures of Japan. In Japan's history, there have only ever been 3. And this man is one of them. As this guy's like, well, I took off the day from my main job. As we see his main job, we see a sign that simply says Subaru. And on the door, a little note that says, closed today, please come again. As Hatsumi's like, right, yeah, being a living treasure of Japan is just a side job for you. As we get a look at this man's face, killer mustache this guy's got, slice taken out of his face, chunked through one eye, which he can no longer see out of, these magnificent eyebrows, and this braided cloth around his head. As with this person just says, well, let's get this over with. I've got sushi to make. And Hatsumi's just like, dude, like, this is a national project. As we get introduced to Subaru Urita, the sushi chef. Of course, one of the 6 original enchanted blade wielders of the blades of Kunishige Rokuhira. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi on this pretty cool note. Like, of course, I can immediately tell where the story is getting ready to go. We're going to have like a little bit of like a competition, if I have to say, or maybe like this just like friendly rivalry between this living swordsmith, like this living legend Subaru Urita, and of course Kunishige, this no-name guy. And through all of this, Kunishige is just going to blow away Subaru with all of this information of all of these blades, and in the process of that, they're going to become good friends, and eventually Subaru is going to get one of the enchanted blades that Kunishige forges, which it's just a really cool little thing, not only seeing Kunishige all throughout this chapter being this just weird, funny guy, and like he's asleep on the ground, he then takes a Danseki, breaks it open on the ground, and then takes a good look at it right there. But of course, with the stuff we learned about Kunishige, we also learned some more things about the Soga clan, and also this Chiaki Soga, who, if I had to give a guess right now, it is probably Kunishige's wife and Chihiro's mother. Of course, like, it would make so much sense if, like, oh yes, it's the Soga princess's prophecy, or the Princess Soga's prophecy, and oh yeah, there's the brother. Maybe it's like a whole Link and Zelda thing, which is actually pretty funny, because I've stolen that exact sort of concept for my D&D campaigns I write as well, in this, like, whole, I'm not even going to try to explain it, but there's this whole idea of, like, oh yeah, the princess and of course the protector, and maybe this protector is supposed to be Soga at the end of the day, or Akemura, I should use his name that's not Soga, that's not the family one that mixes all of it up, but like, either way, it's the whole idea of like, hey, and Shiba the entire time is like, hey, don't you want to see Chiaki, and sort of like pushing there may be something there, and of course Kunishige is like, no, I don't care about any of that. You feed me though, I am so into everything you are ready to do. And of course getting introduced to Hatsumi, who honestly may be a sort of important character here sort of going forward, as like maybe just our liaison to the government during all of this various stuff and bring in Kunishige into the fold. And along with this, getting introduced to Subaru here in the moment. It's a little bit of a cool thing, and yeah, it's a great chapter of Kagurabachi. I absolutely love this one. Either way, if you did enjoy this video, thank you guys so much for watching about Kagurabachi chapter number 114. Again, this chapter was titled Kunishige Roku here, of course, focusing on the man, the myth, the legend himself, good old Kunishige. And yeah, if you did enjoy this video, I've covered Kagurabachi plenty of times on this YouTube channel. I've been covering it since chapter number 44, so pretty much 70 chapters from the chapter I started to where we are now in the Kagurabachi story. All those videos will be in a playlist at the description box of this video, along with the end card of the video as well. And hey, if you did enjoy this video, maybe you would consider subscribing or doing any of the other really cool stuff. It just helps out the channel at the end of the day. Lets me know that you are enjoying the content I put together. And yeah, with all of that, I'll catch you guys next time for Kagurabachi chapter number 115. Again, this was chapter number 114, titled Kunishige Rokuhira. And I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma, signing out.